Welcome to this webinar about Mythos. My name is Matthijs van der Wel-Terwil. I'm a strategic advisor at Orange Cyberdefense. And speaking with my clients, board members, senior leadership, I get a lot of questions about what Mythos really is, and is this the turning point in cybersecurity? Or is it really effective marketing? Or maybe a little bit of both? Well, today we're going to address these questions and answer them. We're going to look at what Mythos really is, where the real risks lie, and of course what you should be doing after this webinar. I'm not going to do this by myself. I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues. Jan Verhulst.
Yes, I'm Jan. I'm team lead of exposure management and threat management teams in Orange Cyberdefense Belgium, meaning this is the pen testing team and the incident response team.
Thank you. Sebastiaan de Vries.
Sebastiaan de Vries, Head of Technology Services in the Netherlands. We do most of the engineering work, so protecting against the latest threats.
Thank you. And Matthias Kaluwaert.
Also strategic advisor, but for Belgium. And my mission is to translate all technical requirements to board level decisions or help them make the right decisions.
Well, welcome. Very happy to have you here. If you have any questions during the live webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A button to ask us questions. If you're watching the recorded version of the webinar, feel free to reach out to Orange Cyberdefense. As you will notice in the coming hour, we are very passionate about talking about cybersecurity and, of course, AI and all the developments in particular. All right, starting off with the basics. Jan, Mythos. What is it? What isn't Mythos?
Well, it's not the latest vulnerability or a name of a threat actor. It's the code name of the newest frontier large language model of Anthropic.
So what does that mean? It's like an AI agent, or?
Well, it's a large language model. We have these different AI labs. We have, for example, OpenAI. We have Google doing AI research. We have, of course, now Anthropic. And they have Claude, which is their chatbot, their version, or their counterpart of ChatGPT. And that comes in many flavors. There's like Sonnet, there's Opus, and now apparently they have a new model, quite powerful, called Mitos.
And that's like a cybersecurity AI model?
No, on April 7th, so they announced this on April 7th, and when you delve deeper into the white paper, it's not cybersecurity specific, it's not made for cybersecurity, but apparently, so it has emerging capabilities, and it's quite good at finding vulnerabilities in operating systems and in software code bases.
So this is an AI large language model, not made for cybersecurity, but apparently very good at finding these vulnerabilities.
Well, it's so good apparently that it was able to find vulnerability in, for example, OpenBSD, which is an operating system that has been touting its own security for many years, saying it's the most safe operating system in existence. It even has a small message when you boot it up saying this, no gaps found for 27 years. Well, so this Mythos LLM was able to apparently find a gap in that operating system.
So that's impressive. So Sebastiaan, can we now all use Mythos to find vulnerabilities everywhere?
Sadly and luckily, no. This means that not everyone has access to Mythos yet. In the area of responsible disclosure, Anthropic has launched Project Glasswing, where they have invited, give or take, 20 tech leaders and industry leaders into the project to pilot Mythos to ensure that the vulnerabilities in the larger tech stacks are found early, before adversaries might be able to use the same technology for evil. Some notable names are, of course, the big logos like Google, like AWS, as well as some of our strategic partners like Palo Alto and Microsoft.
So is this like really strategic leadership by not releasing it to the public, or marketing, or what is your view?
I'm going to be honest, I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you do have such a powerful capability as they are making it out to be, this would be the way to responsibly share that with the world. At the same time, it is also incredibly good marketing to showcase this next leap in technology.
Just the fact that we are having this webinar already shows that it's getting a lot of press attention.
Yeah. So Matthias, speaking about the capabilities of what Mitos can do, we heard from Jan that it's very effective in finding vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. What else does it do? How do we know exactly what it can do?
Well, there have been, as my esteemed colleague just explained, there are a lot of parties that got their hands to test and to play with to see what it is capable of. One of these parties is AC, which is like the AI information security agency based in England, which got their hands on it and could play with it. And what they do is they pit, every time that there is a new model, they pit them against each other and see what the capabilities of this new model exactly are and how it supersedes its predecessors. So what they do is they give it a set of tasks that get increasingly more difficult to see like how well is this new model in comparison to its predecessor. And one of the tests that they use is the last ones, which is a test framework where they give an AI or the LLM the order to try and attack a controlled environment, where it has to start from the lowest milestone, as in do some basic reconnaissance and try to find your way in, exploit a certain vulnerability, and make sure you can go up and up and up in the tree of milestones until you reach the stage of God mode, where you completely own the complete network. A lot of models already attempted this. Up until Mythos, no model has been capable of beating the complete gauntlet. Mitos was able to do this 3 out of 10 times, which is quite incredible.
So it's more than just finding vulnerabilities, it's also being able to actually exploit them, and then to take it one step further up the, let's call it the cyber kill chain, up until they actually achieve their end.
So that's the thing. It's not like they give them a single task like go capture this flag, which is something that also is used to test the AI models. This really is go find the thing, chain it together, stitch it into what you just found and learned, and take it up until you go for the final objective, which is not like a single task, but a couple of tasks need to autonomously do.
So the UK AI Security Institute, to call it correctly, they also have this test where they're testing OT, like the Cool Tower, and I think they failed. So OT is safe, looking at you.
So it's correct that they failed the OT test. I think it's important to note that they didn't even manage to get to the OT portion. They failed in the IT segment of that specific engagement. I don't want to say OT is completely out of the fire, as most OT specialists will tell you there's a lot of work to be done in that space even without AI. But I do think AI is going to change that field as well. And that is something that needs to be thought about very carefully.
So looking at these tests, Matthias, I think there are some test environments or some test settings that may have an influence on how effective Mitos could actually be.
Yeah, because you need to frame this correctly. It's not like the test that they flung at Mitos' head was designed to like completely penetrate an enterprise-grade network with full defense systems in place. It's not like it's actively being monitored by a blue team or a SOC that's actually paying attention to what is happening on screen. Also, in the test, the model doesn't get penalized for making really a lot of noise, which would for certainly be caught when it would be happening to a real enterprise network. So I think you have to be cautious of the claims that you are making. They test it and it can do awesome stuff, but does this automatically mean that every enterprise-grade network tomorrow is vulnerable to this new way of stitching together different techniques performed by an LLM? Is not going to be the case. No. I think the same thing for OT as well, as you mentioned. It failed on the IT portion. But I do think that OT is possibly going to see more impact than the tests actually shows. Because OT is very specialized. It's not like IT. There are a lot of people that have broad knowledge on IT. OT is a different beast. But you can you can give LLMs to people who are not skilled in OT and have them with their little helper all of a sudden become very skilled in attacking OT environment. So that is something that we might see in the future.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of AI-driven research in OT security, and at least I am very keen to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, because Jan, going back to Mythos, does it have like cybersecurity context or a lot of knowledge about cybersecurity?
No, I dove a little bit into the technical paper, and indeed, it was not given specific cybersecurity context. It just has the capability. But also diving deeper a little bit, I have another side note to make, is that it's not that it's genius at indeed finding these vulnerabilities or chaining them together. So for example, for the OpenBSD example, we saw that in the paper, it was specified that they spun up more than 1,000 different sandboxes. They put 1,000 of their Mythos agents in each sandbox, and they actually attacked the same operating system. And one of those 1,000 sandboxes, one of those agents in the sandbox was able to find a bug in OpenBSD. So it's more like a brute forcing that they did than it's a genius model. But obviously this model also keeps learning. So future models will keep learning. Yeah. Even though in the white paper it was even specified that this specific model is not able to improve itself.
So running 1,000 agents in parallel, I mean, I do some playing around with building my own AI agents just for the fun of it, but I noticed that I am burning down my credits quite fast. But if you have like 1,000 running at the same time.
Yeah, well, in this case, it had the actual dollar amount next to it. So they burned about $20,000 on tokens, spooling up those 1,000 machines. And the actual machine that found the bug or the vulnerability cost about $50.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think this is indeed something that will change the economics of the whole game as well, because on one hand, you could say like, right, so they had to spend $20,000 to be able to get that one successful hit that in hindsight just costed $50, which is very much true. But the fact is, we don't know exactly how the cost of using model is going to respond in the future. It can go up or it can go down. Usually what history teaches us is that at some point costs go down, so we don't know. And also if you are an attacker, what is spending $20,000 to find that one genius vulnerability that you can use to then successfully get a lot of payback out of it. So it might be a good idea to invest.
We see similar economic considerations on the defensive side, where AI in some cases is just very expensive right now, and it becomes a cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah. So I think it also found like 181 vulnerabilities in Firefox, and probably some others as well. That's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, but also this is also something where you need to make sure that you are not following the complete marketing trend, but also look at what Firefox had to say, because their CTO responded to the vulnerabilities that were found, and he said like, well, most of them we would have been able to find with a security researcher of a senior level. There were only 3 that they really wanted to give Anthropic credit for, like these are the 3 that really stood out. All the rest we could have found. Then again, you could ask yourself the question, then why didn't you already?
Yeah, because if you look at the update trend from specifically Firefox, you see that in the past years they have successfully been improving their product, and their latest update had a significant record amount of issues fixed. So they are definitely experiencing some level of product development benefit.
Yeah. So going back to the testing environment, because what you mentioned is in combination with what you said, so this is like brute forcing on vulnerabilities in an environment where there were obviously a lot of machines with vulnerabilities, so the AI actually had something to exploit, then taking that one step further, not inventing new TTPs, tools, technique, procedures, but actually brute forcing, finding a vulnerability, then taking action upon it, but in an environment that was not monitored, so they weren't stopped by a capable SOC or an MDR service.
Yeah, so indeed coming back to that one, the genius part of it is that if you would let a human run the same gauntlet exercise, it would take a senior expert, well, they estimate around 20 hours to complete the whole attack chain. Well, AI is a little bit faster than that, so that's where it sits. first of all, when you have an enterprise network, there's going to be some basics in play, right? And if
We
you
hope
have
so,
those,
yeah.
well, and if you have those sorted out, AI is not a magic wand that can all of a sudden do things completely new. It cannot just jump an air gap or something. It's not magic. It does the same thing as we humans do, but a lot faster. That's the thing. And also, it doesn't have to go to sleep in the evening. So the economics of spinning up those things to do the same job as a senior would do might pan out in the benefit of using AI instead of people.
Yeah. So Sebastian, I know that in our pen testing team, you've also been using AI, but then in like real enterprise environments that do have detection in place and respond, that do stop you or block you when you take certain actions. So how does that work for us when we use AI?
So I'll make the first disclaimer. Like it's not me doing the actual work. We have our experts working with these very powerful capabilities, and what we've learned is that AI is very good with code, and that's the essence of how we do these attacks. Right? We're looking at code execution, code based vulnerabilities, things like that, and with various AI products, not just the Anthropic Claude models, we're able to rapidly on the fly develop new tools to leverage exploits that we know about and just streamline our way of doing pen tests. I'll add the disclaimer, stealth isn't always a requirement in these engagements. We're mainly trying to find the vulnerabilities for the client to help them secure them. But during certain red team engagements where stealth is a requirement, we still tend to favor more human-driven approaches than just letting the AI go at it. We always want that human in the middle, making sure the AI stays within its boundaries.
And you also have different agents for different tasks. I think it's not just like we have the one AI to rule them all and to do the complete.
No, and that's probably a good thing because we also don't have a volcano to throw it in if it goes rogue. What we've learned is that different models are good at different things. And that means that we see all these models that are available to us as a toolkit that we can mix and match for specific tasks, be they offensive or defensive or research.
So if I'm to summarize this, and if you're just tuning in, Mythos, that is a specific LLM from Anthropic. It wasn't designed for cybersecurity. It also doesn't have a cybersecurity context, so it doesn't go out and read cybersecurity manuals or cybersecurity research. But it's very good at finding vulnerabilities by trying to brute force them, which actually costs a lot of money. But then again, that's the whole economics of how you can do cyber attacks. And then at the same time, it turned out to be very effective in certain lab tests, where it does have an environment where a lot of vulnerabilities are, but there's no monitoring in place. And it's not like what we should hope a typical enterprise environment would look like, because there you probably would have been able to detect that. And that's also what you notice when our team does the penetration tasks. You also make use of AI, but then specific agents for specific tasks. And you can either use them to be stealthy or non-stealthy.
Help us be stealthy or non-stealthy.
Yeah.
We're not yet at the Mythos level of pen testing.
Yeah. However, you also mentioned that, of course, the speed of how Mythos does it does change things and does change perspective. How does that work out?
Well, so let's look at the claims, because they still are claims. We haven't verified them all, of course. But look at the claims that the machine around Mitos is churning out right now. So like, wow, we give it to a specialized set of companies that need to test their products because they're going to find a whole plethora of vulnerabilities which we want them to fix first before releasing it to the public. So say that these claims are true, and tomorrow those companies indeed find hundreds of vulnerabilities that needs to be patched and fixed. This means that somebody is going to have to apply those patches as well. For companies, we see a lot that they already now have an issue with trying to keep up with the pace of patching their systems. So if tomorrow there is a whole new wave of patches that need to be rolled out, this means that you have to change how you're going to handle this, because you need to be able to, at some point when there is a wave of vulnerabilities detected, to deal with this surge and have like a specific set of procedures and people that can then ramp up to do that wave of patching. So that's one of the things that needs to be changed.
Yeah. So looking at incident response, threat intel, external threat exposure management, how does that change because of Mythos?
I think we can expect a lot more incidents from the blue team side and a lot more incidents to respond to. So I think the speed of response, the speed of responding to incidents for us will have to rise as well. And that we will have to do by also using AI, obviously, in our own defense systems.
Yeah, so if you have a service level agreement, for example, for patch management or for incident response, and typically for patch management, it's like 30 days within large enterprises for certain vulnerabilities, that might no longer suffice.
No, I think that will come under pressure, and we will indeed start building yesterday on those type of defenses, indeed. And that might sound like a bit strange at the moment, but yeah, it's the reality of things. So Mythos is something that is, for me, it's a clear. The people that have been asleep up until now within our sector should now have been awoken, wide awake. But also the models that are coming from other AI labs, I'm pretty sure they will also have similar cyber capabilities. This is just this is a watershed moment, I think, in our sector, where everybody together has to realize that we need to change our strategy a little bit and up our pace.
So we should say that Mythos might not be, Mythos itself might not be the turning point, but the fact that AI, because the OpenAI 5.5 just came out, the security version will probably come out, Google's Deep Sleep will come out. So it's like an industry trend.
Yeah.
And Mythos is like the first one to actually wake us up, as you say.
It's across all different disciplines. There's like marketeers also have an issue. We as cybersecurity professionals now also have an issue. And I think Mythos is this moment that we will remember going forward as the moment that we have woken up, like where it should be clear to everyone that this industry is going to change course.
Yeah, because Matthias, it will also have an impact on risk models. Chance versus impact.
Yeah.
Because chance is probably going to change significantly if you can use AI to reverse engineer patches, if you can find vulnerabilities faster.
That's indeed a very good remark that you make there, I think, because companies or some companies were able to accept the risk of not getting their basics rolled out as fast as they would love them to roll them out, because the risk was substantially lower. That a human had to do everything manually by itself. But if we are silently getting into the age where attacks are going to get more and more automated, chances are that you don't have the luxury to look the other way and accept the risk of not getting your basics into place. I think that's a very important one.
And then we're not even considering the fact that a lot of these AI products make attacks a lot easier for people without very specialized expertise.
Yeah, so the skill level is going to get even lower. So for comparison, if you look at ransomware things, first of all, we had those big bad guys who were really good at programming and conducting attacks. They already went into a model system where they now just rent out their infrastructure to affiliates who are a lot lower at skill levels. And we're going to see the same thing with AI, because you're just going to be able to borrow IQ points from AI so that you don't need to skill up until the level where you are like the elite hacker that can now do it all.
Yeah. So talking about our capabilities on the defensive side, Sebastian, you said we use agents for specific tasks, but there's always like human oversight. Yep. So what is your view on having your own agents continuously running without probably that human oversight within your own organization? So kind of like continuous automated pen testing within my own organization, having AI running around trying to actually do what Mitos does in the lab environment, but then do it in our own network?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very important shift for almost every industry and every organization size. As things start to speed up, we also need to speed up at the beginning of the chain, where we find our own vulnerabilities and self-assess our environment, all the way down to where we strengthen our infrastructure to prevent anything bad from happening. So I think definitely we are getting into an age where vulnerability scanners will come with a premium version, that you now have the vulnerability AI specialized agent trying to find the 0 days for you. As well as we're seeing a lot of products already move in that space, where we do have AI-driven patch management, software management, things like that. I think human oversight will remain key, mainly because we see that a lot of nuance and expertise is needed within organizations to make the right call all the time. And there is a certain margin of error that you simply don't want to accept in these processes. Because I love the idea of Mythos finding all my 0 days before an adversary does. I don't necessarily like the idea of it exploiting them to prove that it can be done and taking down my entire system.
So we're not, sorry, we're not going to lose our jobs soon.
I'm pretty sure we're going to be safe for the foreseeable future. I am also sure that our roles are going to dramatically change.
There we go.
A friend of mine made the interesting comment that he sees this agentic trend as a kind of a Pokemon analogy, where we need to become Pokemon trainers, and instead of having one big Pokemon to do all our stuff, we need to select our party that has the skills and capabilities to help us in our daily task. And I think that is very much the agentic trend we're seeing and moving towards.
Wow. So on the defensive side, Jan, what could you do?
Well, first, there's going to be this risk from having structural asymmetry, meaning that we can expect the attackers to move faster or very, very fast. That's also coming back to the financial model, a bit of a fear that I have, is that we have these attack groups. They have been spending a decade getting rich on ransomware, now having all the vast amounts of funds to be able to burn tokens on a new type of attack. And we will have to defend against that. So there will be some structural asymmetry in the beginning. So we will have to move fast. So basically, is move towards adopting AI in your defense as quickly as possible. This means that, like in your SOC already, we are building, in our own SOCs, we are building AI capability with several tools. Then there's the XDR SIEM tools. They also, from our vendors, also have built-in AI capability. And that's mostly to do quick triage, because there will be a flood coming of new alerts, and the volume will rise, I think. So from a human perspective, it's impossible to be able to handle so much volume 24/7. That's just not feasible.
So, but then it will be like machine against machine.
Well, indeed, that's something that I have been saying for years, that we will get some kind of a army of bots versus army of bots situation in cybersecurity, at least on the perimeter of things, where we are being attacked quite fast, and we are defending, or have to defend with the same speed of execution. So, and on top of this, like you said, indeed, to have within the perimeter, within our companies, also these automated pen testing tools, for example, that do automated red teaming, automated purple teaming, in order to raise our security level.
So should we change our roadmaps completely, because we're now seeing this trend towards much more and much faster attacks?
Well, the thing is, the basics will still hold. Like I explained earlier, it's not a magic thing. So we're still going to have to be able to make sure that we can move faster to making sure that we have all our defenses in place. But the thing is, indeed, if our roadmap previously was saying like we're going to implement this roadmap over the course of 2 years, I think we're going to have an issue if we're keeping that pace. So it's all about speed. We are recording this webinar, so I'm sure that some people will be watching this webinar in a month or 2 months. I can safely say that the context might have changed in the course of those 2 months by a little bit. So that's the pace at what we are moving at. So roadmaps need to be more agile than we were drafting them before, but they will still contain the same components.
I think it's interesting because you mentioned the basics, And I know we had this discussion earlier about what is the basics today, Sebastian?
Yeah, I think what's important to note is that as this threat becomes more clear to us, the volume of attacks we're going to be dealing with is going to be immense. But as the defending party in this, we determine the rules of engagement here. It's our playing field, so to say, meaning that we need to understand what we're working with, and that has substantially changed from what it was 10 years ago, where back then you'd have enough with an antivirus solution and a firewall. Now, with today's infrastructure, IoT and SaaS solutions, you also need to consider things like MFA, your patching cycle, your CMDB needs to be up to date, your employees need training. And these types of basics are going to be the starting point of making sure that you're ready for this volume of new risks.
Yeah, but so if I translate that also to advice that I would like to give my clients, it's also make sure that you invest in training your cybersecurity staff on how to use and incorporate AI into what they're doing.
Absolutely agree with what you are saying there, because this is also something that we need to realize. And this is something that the board needs to be aware of as well. It's like if you're going to be sleeping on the job, and by that I mean if you're not going to be able to skill up fast enough with these new types of skill that all our employers and our defenders need to start to master, then you're going to have an issue. Because indeed, the thing is also, when we look at regulations and asymmetric benefits for attackers, it's like they don't have to care about any type of regulation at all. They can just try. They can try and automate the whole attack chain and not look at it and see if it works. We as defenders are not allowed to do that. We need to keep that human in the loop for a long while. So this means we're going to have the automated attacks going against humans assisted with AI. But this means that we're getting, indeed, a different kind of speed there as well.
Yeah, and I think I saw an interesting question appearing on the screen. If Mythos or any AI would also try to find vulnerabilities in drivers or hardware. And I think we're just at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops in the future, because this isn't something that is only interesting for attackers. Our partners that develop the products that we use on a day-to-day basis to get those fundamentals in place to secure our clients are also looking to these technologies to just improve their product development. So I'm sure someone is already training an AI to test drivers and hardware, and I'd be very keen to see what they go to market with soon.
Yeah. And then hopefully it will also be used for developing code in a secure manner. So we have security by design. So on the defensive side, we also have some opportunities, of course. So speaking about vulnerabilities, I think at the beginning of this year, I had to do a presentation for a client, and I looked up the number of predictions of how many CVEs there would be this year, 2026. I think it was 15, close to 60,000. That was before Mythos. But that number will significantly change. So will CVE, because of also the speed of how fast vulnerabilities are found, will CVE still be like a valid way of using for your patch management strategy?
I think CVE still holds value, by the way. So that's very interesting to realize that it doesn't lose its value. But the thing is, if your patch management still relies on just fixing whatever has the highest score inside of those tables, then we're doing something wrong, because you simply will not be able to keep the pace with what is coming out. So you need to contextualize. You need to look at what is the possibility that this CVE will be exploited inside of my infrastructure. Is it already seen in the wild as being exploited? So you're going to have to change the way that you patch to be more pragmatical. Like maybe you shouldn't fix that 9.9 CVE vulnerability that you are seeing, because it doesn't necessarily indulge a huge kill chain, but it might be a better idea to just fix the lower one with the 7.7 that sits smack in the middle of a kill chain. Yeah. So you need to be pragmatic about what you're going to patch.
We're looking more and more or less into the situation where every vulnerability is bad and should be patched, and more into what is the exploitability of the vulnerabilities. Let's say this vulnerability is used by an adversary. What's the direct impact of that? And start prioritizing more with that. A key example of that is now the CISA KEV score, known exploited vulnerability. At the same time, we now see this huge surge in vulnerabilities happen, But I also expect that as products like Mythos become more commonplace also for the people making these products, we're going to see that they can address these vulnerabilities before they release. So we'll now see a spike in vulnerabilities that will hopefully, in the longer term, taper out.
That is a very positive thought you have.
I try to be optimistic.
Yeah, let's hope it materializes. So I saw an interesting comment in the question about would virtual patching be like the solution, immediate virtual patching, just to keep up with the pace? Would that be a valuable strategy?
I'm going to be the annoying consultant here and say it depends. I think there are definitely situations where this is a very, very strong strategy. I can also see a few situations where this might be less ideal. What I'd recommend is that if this is something that your team and your organization is capable of, to embed this in your standard operating procedure. Maybe you have a situation where as soon as it's available, you deploy the virtual patch, and then you have a little breathing room to validate what your next step should be. Other organizations, like we said in the beginning, as OT becomes more in scope, they have a lot less ability to do virtual patching.
Yeah. So again, going back to risk management, rolling out a patch could also mean some downtime. And this is where the organization has to accept that downtime. Have those dynamics changed because of the speed and number of vulnerabilities that can be found?
Well, when it comes to getting a patch window, the only truth that I can see throughout my career is that getting a patch window is starting to get increasingly harder to do. So will it change? Yes. Should you get more patch windows? Yes. Will the business accept this necessarily? I don't know. So I think it's up to us to make sure that we flag this as this is the reason why our business has to lay off for like an hour or 2 hours because we really need a window in. Because the economics of not doing so might not necessarily favor your business if something terrible happens.
I think this is also a key example of how infrastructure is currently changing. If you take the example of, let's say, you have a web shop, you don't want the web shop to be down because you need to update because it's your core business. So what we see more and more is these setups of high availability deployments where you have your web shop and your secondary backup web shop. And if you need to do an update, only one goes down. So you're still operational. This one gets patched, and when it's done, it comes back. You take the other one offline for patching. So that level of network design is also something that is being affected by this new emerging trend.
Okay. So if I obviously I listen to you, but what I keep hearing is, we're going to need more money because we're going to need to train our cybersecurity people in how to properly use and AI into our defenses. We need to actually build a shadow infrastructure or high availability infrastructure as well. We need more downtime because we need to implement patches.
We also need to pay for the tokens.
Oh, we also need to pay for the tokens, yes. And the cost of tokens might also go up. I mean, at a certain moment, I assume that these companies want to make more profit. So it's all coming down to more cost, more cost, more cost. And then we also still need humans. So we cannot say, oh, AI is there, so we get rid of the very expensive humans. So this really calls for a discussion with the board and say, I have some bad news for you because of the developments that are going on with AI, not Mythos specific, because we also talked about other models, but this is kind of like the turning point where we say the costs it's going to increase.
Well, I think it's a very valid point again that you are making there. I think the biggest mistake would be to leave the what are we going to do with AI question or what do we need to do entirely with the CISO or with IT. Because this is indeed something that needs to be discussed now by the whole board. So you really have to go and sit down with the complete board, being the CIO, the CISO, CFO, CEO. Like, what is going to be our strategy? Eh? What is our strategy, not for the next coming year, but for the first 30 days, the next 45 days, 90 days, what about half a year? Because you need to have a hefty discussion like, what does IT mean for us as a business? Not just from the defensive or from the offensive standpoint, but what are we going to do with this new beast that came out of heavens and is now keeping us awake at night?
So that is the wake-up call that you referred to earlier on. We need to have this discussion now.
Yeah, and if you ever had the misfortune of being a CISO in a large company, you know that even talking about cybersecurity to your board is not that easy. It's always like the fact that they have a CISO, for some of them it's like a check mark or something, and then it can be quite difficult. I talk to a lot of CISOs as well. So now even with AI, the fact that it's so urgent to indeed have more funds, have more means to start working on this, it's going to be quite a challenge. And that's what I'm a bit fearful about, is that something bad will have to happen again before another part of the industry is going to wake up. So, but that's I'm a bit of a doom thinker in that way, but and became a little bit cynical because indeed it's not every board is, pardon the pun, on board with cybersecurity in general and with the risks they are facing.
Okay, so let's make it like really concrete. What is your advice, starting with you, Matthias, for our viewers? What should you do after watching this webinar, if you haven't done that already?
So I think the word speed has fallen more than 1,000 times during our webinar here. So speed is definitely, for me, the most important thing. I already said it in my previous answer. It's like, get the board together and have your talk about AI. This is something you can do tomorrow. Don't wait it out. Don't go sit and see what the rest of the industry is doing. Start those discussions now. On the other hand, make sure that you are indeed adopting AI on your defensive side as well. Make sure that your defenders are capable of using AI, that they can have their own agents to assist them in their job, because otherwise you're going to get overrun.
Thank you. Sebastian, your concrete advice.
My concrete advice. I think, like we've said multiple times in this session as well, the cybersecurity space is changing really fast, and we need to adapt to that as well. I think to facilitate that board discussion, many organizations should start thinking about assigning a chief AI officer or someone similar to kind of lead that discussion, be the board's experts in that space. And of course, like we've said multiple times now, the less hyped thing that everyone also still needs to consider is just getting the basics in order. There are so many of these attacks that we've discussed where we see that it was successful because there was no defenses in place. There was no monitoring. They could be allowed. There was no security team. These will be key. And lastly, look at that next level of automation. We've discussed it now a little bit in terms of supporting your existing security team with continuous red teaming, getting newer tools in place where you need them that also have agentic components in them, and finding the agents that are right to support your team. Don't replace your team, support them.
Yeah, because you still need humans.
Exactly.
And I think getting the basics right, just to be really transparent, that's not going to stop AI, but it's going to slow it down.
I think given enough time, a sufficiently advanced AI or AI product will get through your defenses, but you're trying to make sure you have time to respond. So things like network segmentation, multi-factor authentication, things like these ways of limiting the initial compromise are going to be lifesavers for your security team so that they have time to analyze and respond on what they're seeing together with their new AI sidekicks.
Thank you. And Jan, your concrete advice.
Well, I also had the word fast on here, but I'm going to actually now go the other way, and perhaps another piece of advice that I might have is that is to don't panic, think about this new situation. Grab your favorite coffee, grab a coffee, grab your favorite colleague, I wanted to say. Sit down and talk about the use cases that you have at this moment and things where you can concretely start using AI and just really overthink it. Don't action first, but really think about what you're going to do and what is the most cost-effective way of starting tomorrow or starting today with this. So, speed, yes, but thinking about what you're going to do and how first is also, I think, something that might be valuable.
Think first, but think fast.
Yeah, well,
Think first.
let the AI move fast, but we as humans, we still have to be smart in how we deploy and how we, because with the resources, with the tokens, with the money we will have to deploy smartly.
Yeah.
So,
You don't have unlimited budget, so that means making choices. Looking at some questions from the audience. Do current frameworks like the AI governance or cybersecurity standards adequately cover tools like Mythos?
I'm going to give you the short answer. Currently, I feel no. There is a lot of good work in these standards that I think is definitely needed. But with a lot of these standards, you see them still catching up, especially with Mythos being so secretive within Project Glasswing. I think as soon as they fully disclose their findings, we're going to see a lot of these frameworks potentially pivot one way or the other to that.
Yeah, either Mythos or another framework from a competing AI provider.
Because that's like really the thing that we are talking about during this session. We mention Mitos a lot, but it's not Mitos alone.
No.
It's all of them. It's a signal. It's a signal like, look, this is what's happening, and if it's called Mitos or if it's called something from OpenAI, it can be all of them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, start waking up and start doing stuff.
I think the important thing therein is that, and I know we're getting a little off the question right now, but I think the important thing to note is that Mythos is the product, AI here is the risk.
Yeah. So question, is the CISO or CISO responsible for vulnerabilities? I think the supplier developer is responsible. Do you agree?
I think there's arguments to be made on both sides. There are product level vulnerabilities where there's definitely an argument to be made this lies with the vendor. There are also configuration vulnerabilities where you may have simply incorrectly deployed a product, which would not necessarily be the CISO's sole responsibility, but definitely lie within your organization.
I think patching obviously falls to, and when do you patch? That is the responsibility.
Exactly. I think the most important thing as we see this speed up happening is that we try and stay away from the blame game, right? A mentor of mine made the comment once that you can delegate responsibility, you can't delegate accountability. So even if you can say, it's the vendor that gave me a faulty product, that was great, your company still got hacked, right? You're the one that needs to secure your clients.
Yeah. So we talk about economics, or we have talked about economics, and I see a question coming in. What is the ROI of a patch management program from the perspective of defenders and attackers? Oh, and I think this is where we touched upon it. We're still like asymmetric.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the $1 million question, because it really tries to answer like how much money can we throw at it to still keep the balance in our favorites. So that's going to be the $1 million question everybody's going to have to answer, I think. Like, what's going to be the ROI of investing, and offset it to what's going to be the ROI of not investing, and what's going to be the risk for doing that. So it's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, and is it just about the speed? Is that the only risk?
Can you
from the
rephrase your
attacker
question?
side? So when we talk about patch management, is speed the only thing that's of the essence?
Well,
for the attacker?
I think speed and efficiency. Again, it's not trying to patch everything as fast as possible. It's trying to contextualize what you should patch specifically for your organization, which can completely be different for your organization than my organization. So I think that's one.
I think an important thing, especially from the attacker perspective, as we talk about Mythos, we've been focusing a lot on technical vulnerabilities. We have not yet seen Mythos or a productized model target humans in the form of phishing or social engineering. We've had traces of AI being used to generate phishing mails, but not in similar levels of complexity as Mythos can do with technical vulnerabilities.
I feel a new webinar coming up in like a month.
We'll get Martin right on it.
And the other thing is also something that I think we're going to play out, because now we're talking about LLMs social engineering humans. I think we're going to see humans social engineering LLMs quite fast as well. Sweet talk the agent in trying to give you something that it shouldn't be allowed to give you. That's a whole new way of approaching agentic AI inside of organizations as well.
We need to start renaming our firewalls to trick the AI.
All right, I see a question coming in about Anthropic's integrity and the cautious approach that's being appreciated. Like you said, it's like a responsible disclosure kind of way of acting. And the question is that some other players in this space might not exercise that same restraint? Should we be concerned about that others with fewer ethical safeguards might be building something comparable or even more powerful?
Yeah, because that's the thing, it's ethics. That's the one word that you need in the whole AI conversation. Ethics, and some more ethics, because that's exactly what this whole conversation should be running about. Who's doing it in the most ethical way, and not who is doing it in the fastest way with security in hindsight or ethics in hindsight.
I think what we've seen as well also in our own use of AI, like we said multiple times, it's not just Mythos that can find vulnerabilities and to an extent exploit them. So I guarantee you there are unethical users now using AI to find vulnerabilities. We're just lucky that the guys with seemingly the most powerful model are doing it responsibly right now.
So I see a question coming in, and we discussed earlier about should we discuss also the legal frameworks. Mm-hmm. We said, well, we might dive a little bit off topic, but I do see a question coming in that do you foresee a future where regulators or frameworks like DORA effectively force financial institutions to adopt AI-assisted defensive capabilities?
One of the probably sectors I'm least worried about of thinking about this is the financial sector. They tend to be very early to adopt these types of defensive mechanisms.
Again, you were very positive.
I like to be, right? There's enough doom and gloom around this topic already. I think what we've always seen is regulatory frameworks are always forced to catch up to current events. They do not dictate innovation, they have to respond to it. There will definitely be lessons learned in the coming periods that hopefully will be effectively adopted in these frameworks. But for now, we need to think fast and find practical solutions.
And I think it's also a very valid point that you're addressing there. It's like the regulator has to play the catch-up game. When we're talking about frameworks being developed and enforced, that's something that takes quite a long time. So also we're going to have to see in this space that speed needs to start accelerating, because you cannot have discussions about what are we going to put inside of the framework for 1 year, then getting all the bits and pieces in place to actually start to enforce it. So also there we're going to have to see some changes, I think.
Yeah,
I will add that a lot of the existing frameworks provide great starting ground for your own adoption for AI, your own starting on these security basics. So it's not like we need to reinvent everything.
Okay. So Jan, question coming in, and I think it's typically addressed to you. What can a security analyst do to support their CISO and wider InfoSec team from a security culture viewpoint based on learnings from Mythos? So this is the security culture viewpoint.
Well, it's more like providing evidence than I would say that indeed the speed, everything is accelerating, and they have different types of incidents coming in, and they need the volume goes higher. Just set some KPIs and go with the KPIs to your CISO, and the CISO will take that to the board, and because that's in numbers that they understand. So I think that's the main role from the trenches, is to actually prove that the enemy is at the gates, so to speak, and the board needs to see proof of this, and there's a very difficult role there, because you need someone who can, and typically a CISO can do this. You have to translate the operational stuff into business language. So having people that can do that is going to be quite important going forward.
Yeah. And then again, if I may add to that from a very practical perspective, because you talk about KPIs and metrics, I think, well, we already addressed, the speed of finding things, but also having discussions on why, we should implement these patches much faster, or at least change our approach to how we do patch management, and then breaking that also down into numbers, into what does that actually mean for our organization.
Well, you're going to have a budget, and typically you will easily deplete the budget. You can put it in many things. So having a sit down first and really think about strategy and about risk especially is going to be quite important going forward.
Yeah. Okay, then I get a question. The problem currently affecting the adoption of AI models in the SOC for defense mechanisms brings with it many uncertainties. That's true. AI models are not always transparent or locally deployable. How do you view this?
Yeah, that's true. It's not. It's
like
more
a black
more like a
box.
statement rather than a question. But indeed, yeah, it's the field is in progress. So it's happening as we speak. There's new things to discover every single day. So we are implementing AI capabilities, and so far so good, I would say. But this is before the volume that's coming in. So we are relieving our analysts at this moment. They can, so a human analyst can handle, let's say, 10 complex cases a day. With an assisted an AI assist, this can be moved up to 50 cases a day they can handle. But we still don't have the volume from the other side. That's going to be expected. So it's
So what I notice with our clients, because we do have certain solutions where AI is built in, and then the AI can make a decision to either kill a process or isolate a machine from the network. And then we deploy these agents, we let it run for 3 months in learning mode. We go to our client and say, look, these are the moments where AI would have killed something, like killed a process or isolated a machine. And then they were all correct. And then we say, shall we turn it on? And then our clients still say, nah, don't turn it on yet.
Yeah. There's indeed also the risk that it turns off an operational a machine that's quite important, like a domain controller or something. So it's indeed,
But I want to make a point on that one as well, because the discussion also leans into the fact like, but an AI agent can make a mistake and do something really terrible. So does every one of your colleagues as well, eh? So you have to offset the chance of an AI agent doing something stupid against a colleague doing something stupid. And that's also something that you need to add to the game.
I'll counter to that with saying that an AI can mess up a lot faster than my average colleague.
Yeah.
But I think that is also the key consideration, right? If you have certain processes that might accidentally get killed by these types of solutions, it becomes a discussion on scale. Like, do I really care if it goes wrong once? If yes, then probably don't do this. If it's not that bad of a situation, if that happens, then let's give it a try, because it is really going to make the work for your security team a lot more effective.
And the thing that I was getting at is because now you see a lot of press hype coming from, look, the AI agent deleted my production database. But then when you dive into the story, you actually see like, so what did the human instruct the AI to do? So what did you expect then? So this is also something, it's us deploying the thing. It's not necessarily the AI agent doing something stupid, it's you letting it do something stupid.
I think we might need a third webinar on this as well.
Stupid prompts you can give to your, to your AI.
Irresponsible things to do with your agents.
Okay, I see there's one final question from the audience, and that is like, do you like Pokemon?
I am a very... I have fond memories of Generation 1 of Pokemon. All the new stuff I don't follow. I still value Pikachu very much.
Good. And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for sharing your expertise and your opinions today. Summarizing, Mythos is not, like you said, it's not the problem. Mythos is not necessarily the turning point, but the fact that AI is becoming more and more used in cybersecurity to speed up the process of finding vulnerabilities, exploiting them as well, that is going to have a significant impact, whether that's Mythos or any other AI provider, with or without ethical boundaries, I should say. And that really requires us to step up our game and have that dialogue within our team, spend some time about really discussing what the implications are, and then have that dialogue with our board, because it's going to have company-wide implications. Yep. Thank you very much for viewing this webinar. If you have any further on questions, feel free to reach out to Orange Cyberdefense. As I promised you in the beginning, we're very passionate to talk about cybersecurity and, of course, AI. Thank you very much for watching.